If you have aspirations of building a multi-six-figure or a seven-figure company, then you need to start thinking from a systems perspective. And what I'm going to be doing today on this YouTube is covering the top 5 systems that you need to be focusing on at all times. And as you'll basically see, the main objective that you want to get to with having these systems running is always looking at then predictability and accountability and also perseverance. That's what a system is for me, is how can this start and then not stop? That is what makes an incredible system. It's not having a fancy quick fix there where you throw something together and hope it's going to work. It's a system that you can have in place, maintain, improve, and scale. That is the definition of a system for me. So the 5 that we're going to be talking about today is an acquisition system, looking at predictable leads and traffic, a conversion system, looking at sales and enrollment rather than just hope, a delivery system with client fulfillment that actually scales, a retention and ascension system, looking at lifetime value and new sales coming through. And then finally, you've got operations and leadership, where it's not just a business, it's not just a job, it's something that you can scale and also have freedom with it as well. So first things first, which is going to be the exciting stuff, we're going to be looking at the basics of acquisition. And in 2025, people have found this quite difficult because the standardized, crazy, high volume, abusive DMs is starting to fall short because everyone started doing it. The AI chatbot, ManyChat follow-ups, starting to fall short. So what you've got to really think about is how you can actually get as creative as possible when the market has been challenging, and also with your paid ad sets and lining yourself up so you're in the right position to do that. And there's a lot to take into account when it comes to having a predictable acquisition system. So the 2 foundations that you need before looking at scaling to any high is having a clear organic content strategy and a clear lead magnet foundation. So your content is going to be the thing that people are going to get nurtured by. So in this day and age now, people need 21 touch points, 28 positive impressions in order to get to a point of wanting to take action. So what you've got to think about here is you can't be coming through and chopping and changing how you are speaking, who you are speaking to. What we need to do here is we need to pick one niche, we're going to commit to that person, and we're going to hammer that for 6 months. You cannot be judging an offer or judging a niche based on not creating content on that person for at least 6 months, because it's at that point where you start to break through and start to generate a lot of awareness for what you're actually doing. And it's not just about creating content and then throwing it out there. Every single email, every single bit of social media content, every single story that you put out there needs to be focusing on highlighting the specific pain that you are going to solve for that specific person. And that needs to be hit again 5 to 7 times per week, because as we know, the content that we create isn't served to all of our followers. So we need to make sure that there is a consistent system where you've got 28 to 30 posts every single month, which is directly hitting that person and directly making the right type of impression. I'd also recommend looking at having one clear evergreen flagship lead magnet that basically captures data, nurtures, and works through. So whether that is a evergreen assessment or a live webinar or a passive opt-in funnel or a guide set, have one value asset which is really kind of good. It's going to really solve their pain and get to the point. And then from that point, yeah, you can start looking at rotating things around. But for me, it comes down to isolating one niche, committing to that niche for a minimum of 6 months, making sure every single piece of content speaks to that specific person, and then having at least one high value asset that you can use in rotation, such as a guide, challenge, webinar, or whatever it may be. And then from that point, look to see how you can automate as much as possible. So having ManyChat for lead delivery with people opting in, making sure that you've got email nurturing systems connected, so when someone does opt in, you've got them clearly going into a pipeline and further retargeting. Manual does not scale. You can do loads of manual follow-ups known to man, but remember, the aim of the game is loads of positive impressions. The next thing that you've got to look at from that point is really isolating where are your primary traffic sources and where have you got your weekly nurtures in place. So for me, I would always recommend mastering one platform. I do highly recommend that you always cross-channel post. So in this day and age now, the content that you create for Instagram is quite applicable to YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. So you always need to be looking at cross-channel posting. But for most people out there, depending on what niche and offer that you've got running, you're probably predominantly going to be looking at either Instagram or LinkedIn, depending on where your niche hangs out. But go out of your way to dominate one space for a minimum of 90 days. When you are using the evergreen lead magnet that we spoke about before, you also need to be looking at continuously retargeting them. So all of this new data that you've got coming through, you need to have a daily email or a weekly email system that is not only targeting people on the front end with the content that you're creating, but also retargeting them on the back end, because again, all we're trying to do is populate more impressions, more positive impact, and more pain that's highlighted and resolved to get to a form of action. You also need to make sure that every single person who comes in and opts into your evergreen lead magnet or your rotational lead magnet, that you're going to be following up with that person within 24 hours, whether it's a comment, a reply, or a share, someone starting a conversation, whatever it is, you need to be absolutely on it with your responses, or an appointment setter needs to do it for you. And then from that point, when you get to an issue where, well, not an issue, a point where organic content is a good place, and don't get me wrong, it's a little bit silly to be hoping to go viral on every single post, but at the same time, as if you're in a spot where your organic content is starting to perform and you've got cash and sales coming through the door, then that's when I would start to look at amplifying certain posts where you've got potentially £5 a day starting point to 10 to 20 to 50, right, and building it up from that point, because we need to make sure that we are creating as much awareness and as much attention for you and the content that you're creating as possible. And when you are only posting organically, you're only going to get the chance of people seeing your content, whereas if you've got a bit of a budget to be looking at top funnel booster posts and also looking at direct advertisement with comment CTAs and putting a budget behind that there, all we're trying to do is just increase those opportunities. From that point, we're obviously looking at the outcomes that we're looking for. So we need to basically be in a situation where we know where the next 10 to 20 leads are going to be coming from. Is it coming from your email? Is it coming from content? Is it coming from a weekly lead magnet? Is it coming from a YouTube that you're doing? Rather than thinking, I don't know where to find clients, we need to be in a situation where you are creating opportunities for people to be nurtured and having positive impressions with you. From that point, if you're in a position where you've got 20 to 50 highly qualified people coming into your pipeline, you've got consistent lead flow, then all that leaves that is that system can be ran and scaled. And then from that point, all you're going to move is to making sure that you've actually got your sales system locked in place, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. We need to be in a situation where your content is running 24/7. It is compounding views, compounding more opt-ins, compounding more nurturing. And this is a 7-day, 365-day system where your organic content and your organic lead magnets are constantly getting new opt-ins and constantly getting people into your pipeline and constantly being in a situation where they're retargeted weekly with emails. And then from that point, again, I'm not a big fan of pushing people into paid ads or paid traffic until I know that their organic content's in a great place, their organic lead magnets are in a great place, the follow-up's absolutely bang on, the nurturing's bang on. Right, sweet. Are we maximizing organic? Right, now let's start to look at actually getting some traffic through the door with ads. System number 2 is then going to be looking at conversion. So this is where we've got sales and enrollment. So rather than just hoping that sales are going to come through the door, making sure that if you have just had a decision between a passive or a direct sales process, again, people are throwing bullshit at you where it's like, you have to do it, sell through DM, or you have to sell through that. No, you sell based on whatever offer that you've got. So if you've got an offer that needs an appointment booking, you need to make sure that you've got watertight appointment booking sales script. If you've got an offer that can be ran through a passive sale, such as a DM evergreen pitch deck or selling via DM, then again, you can do that again, but you still need to make sure that you've got a robust script in place to use on every single call or every single conversation. If you are running calls, then what I would highly recommend is that you actually make sure that you are running at least 60 to 70% of that call focusing on their diagnosis, right? One area that I see people falling short with sales calls is they are constantly coming in and trying to promote what they're doing and leverage themselves, whereas the best thing that you can do in a sales call is just listen to their current situation, identify the gap, which is their current pain point, to their future goal, and then present yourself in the middle as a solution. And most importantly, track absolutely everything. Every single call booked, the show up rate, the conversion rate, the lost rate, where people are basically falling off and what objections they're coming forwards. And you basically need to be in a situation where, like, look, if you can be closing at 60 to 90%, then you're qualifying at a really, really, really high level. I always say to people, if you can be closing at 50 to 60%, then you're also in a pretty good spot, right? Because if you're closing too high, potentially your prices need to go up. If your closing's too low, then potentially need to come down a little bit. So that 50 to 60 mark is an ideal one for me. You've then got to be thinking about making sure you're not wasting loads of effort with people coming onto calls or people not showing up. So making sure that you've got some form of qualification process when people are coming to book a call. So whether you do this through Typeform or whether you do this through Calendly, this can be as simple as asking what their current goals are, what their current pain points are, what they're looking for. It's not just about overqualifying, can you afford this? I actually don't recommend putting that into any type of application process unless you've got a lot of traffic coming through. But a qualification process can be based on their current pain, their goals, and does that actually match your offer? The next thing that you need to make sure that you're doing is building out a common objections bank and making sure that you have got multiple different rebuttal objections that you can go at that person with. Because if you are prepared for objections and you have a diagnosis with objections, again, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of getting that sale through the door. If you are smashing organic content, you're getting leads in, you're getting calls booked, but you're just not closing, again, the whole process is pretty pointless. So we need to make sure we've got a sales system locked in place. And then most importantly, understanding that not every person in any business or any offer out there is always going to come through and say yes, right? What I would highly recommend that you do is you've got a 24-hour, a 3-day, and a 7-day follow-up to make sure that you've not only got your weekly retarget on emails and weekly retargeting with nurturing and they're seeing your content and your stories, but you've got that manual follow-up as well. And then that'll basically enable you to actually manage an active pipeline and start looking at retargeting. So rather than moving into sending shitloads of cold DMs out, you just focus on the pipeline that you've already got in your ecosystem and keep adding value to them and keep going back at them all the time. So like we basically said earlier, if you can close at 50 to 60%, then you're on a pretty good point. Like that's what I always look for with a normal sales process. If you can close above that, great, but my argument would be to increase your prices. If you're coming in at 30, 40% and you're not closing enough, then potentially it's your pitch deck and your script, your qualification, your content, but also potentially you might need to be looking at dropping your prices a bit to get sales through the door. But this is basically why you must be tracking your KPIs to see where the gaps are. So your script, whether it is, again, a passive sales process or a direct sales process, you need to have that watertight, you need to be training someone on it, or you need to be training yourself, and you need to know that script absolutely off by heart, alongside having your human intuition on knowing how to have a conversation with someone, diagnose and add value as well. But what we're basically looking for here is if you've got 20 calls a month and you're closing at 70% at 3K, that's 42,000 per month predictably. But this doesn't start with the sales call process. It starts with the organic content. It starts with the lead magnet. It starts with the nurturing. It starts with getting people into your pipeline. It then moves into getting people from your pipeline onto actual calls. And then on calls, you start looking at the next thing. So what I want you to imagine is that all of these systems work together. So you must start your organic acquisition first, you're moving into your sales, and then from that point, we can start moving into the actual delivery. Because commonly what I see in this day and age now is people putting so much time and effort into acquisition and sales and ads, but forgetting about the actual clients. And you've got so much money in your business just by looking after the people that you're serving, looking at ascension models, looking at next steps that they can take up. They are the die-hard people that you need to look after, because if you can keep a client for 10 months rather than losing one, it's going to cost you 10 times more to get a new person on board. So if you can retain them for longer but also potentially ascend them, you are going to get so much more money over time from an active client than you will do any type of new person coming through the door. So what I would recommend when we're looking at the actual delivery system is to make sure that you've got some form of proprietary method. So stop customizing absolutely everything. Build out a 6 to 12 month robust step-by-step process of your phases, the client journey, the growth map, or whatever it is that you're going to take someone through with your offer, and then build that 6-month journey to 12-month journey. And then all you need to do from that point is build it. So you build out the step-by-step process. 1, automating onboarding, so it starts immediately after purchase with a welcome email, expectations, next steps, portal access, kickoff calls, moving into the basically why you're actually doing what you are doing, build as much personal connection as humanly possible, get as much buy-in as humanly possible. And then most importantly, you've got your onboarding system locked down, but it all starts with that proprietary framework. Your signature framework gives you your onboarding, your check-ins, your follow-ups, your assets, your course, your everything. So when I build an offer for someone, the first thing that I do is I build their overview program, and from that point, whether it's building a journal, which I'm literally doing for someone at the moment, building an info course, which I'm doing for someone at the moment, building out a one-to-one delivery, which I do for God knows how many different people. It all starts with the overview to that. From that point, and once you've got your overview to your actual offer, you can then start thinking about, you can add more assets and more structures. So based on the program journey you have in place, this would be a really good video series, resource series, or task series, and a visual roadmap that they can have on Kajabi, on Thinkific, on Notion, on School, like we have ours. But overall, it's just that additional thing that you can bring into your offer to get someone from being in pain to their desired situation down the line. You can be building out evergreen structures, so recording once, so you don't have to do loads of lives, but you can add lives on top. But any way that you can basically add as much value as humanly possible to that person, from nurturing them and educating them on an evergreen overview perspective, alongside having a clearly checking structure and accountability or KPI tracking system in place to make sure that you are on it as possible, right? And on top of that, you've also got different email reminders, SMS touch notifications, missed check-ins, and make sure that just because someone's purchased your program doesn't mean that they're going to follow it. You need to keep them accountable at all times. So once you've basically got a delivery system in place, like, clients are going to get results without you working more hours, right? Clients are going to know exactly what to expect and when. Your program's documented, the team is ready, and retention's going to go from 3 to 6 months to 12 to 24 months, right? I know this because I do this with people all the time. Like, do not forget about your delivery system. Do not deliver the same basic shit as everyone else, because in the market in this day and age now, when we're looking at personality, product, right? For me, that's the two things what separates people in this season at the moment. Your personality is going to come through in how you approach your content, your acquisition, your follow-ups, and your creativity there. But your product is going to be the single thing that makes you stand out in the market and also bring you so much more conviction through with content acquisition and sales. So do not fall short on your delivery system. We've then got retention and ascension. So this is where we're basically looking at increasing the lifetime value, so of new sales coming through the door, but targeting people internally with what we're doing. So all you basically need to do from that point is think about, right, what type of milestones, what type of check-ins, and what type of gifts and surprises can I give to people? So you could be coming in and running this by posting stuff out. So we post stuff out to our clients. So when someone onboards to our company, they get a really nice welcome book. To get my actual book as well, and then when we're doing events, I'll send them different stuff out as well. We'll also look at sending out emails, we'll look at reward systems, and overall just try and think about, right, when someone joins, what's the best way I can give them an incredible experience without just stick them into a course or stick them into one-to-one delivery. Get them excited, get them ready for the next phases of their business. You can be looking at automated emails, you can be looking at monthly feedback forms to track satisfaction and looking at basically diving into one-to-one gaps. But don't just have a delivery process of your program. Think about what milestones and group check-ins and different structures that you can come through. So you can also then, once you've got engagement and you've got that dangling carrot, is start thinking about what type of ascension programs that you can have. So it might be an entry level of 1K into a core program at 3K, into a premium at 5K, into a VIP at 10. So for example, I have an entry level program which is going to be coming in 2026, which is going to be quarterly accelerators. From that point, I have my smart scaling system, which is my group. From that point, I then have my Propel program, which is my one-to-one client growth manager focus. And then finally, I have my one-to-one. So I have 4 different ascension models and places that people can upsell within my core offer structure. And again, I'm probably similar to you. I've got 14,000 Instagram followers, 1,000 YouTube subscribers. Sometimes it's not about having shitloads more traffic, it's about maximizing what you've actually got there. So map out your value ladder, think how you can add on different community spaces, looking at evolving different offers, how can you adjust one-to-one contact time for different areas, and then most importantly is to think about how you can manage people on an overview community perspective as well. So what we're aiming for here is retaining clients from 12 to 24 months rather than just 3 to 6 months. We're looking at that's a quite high number, 30 to 50%. But if you had a 20% to 30% ascension rate, then you are going to be on to an absolute winner. And then 60% of your revenue is constantly coming in just from retaining clients by going to the lengths of delivering an offer on a different level to anyone else in your space. That is the single only reason here why I'm a 7-figure business owner. It's not from social media, I'll tell you that. right? It's because I've been creative with acquisition, creative with content. I've made every impression count and also built out an offer structure which is predictable. It's the same as my sales process and everything else. So if you're looking at any of that at the moment and you do want any support, then we help ambitious coaches, consultants, and service providers scale their personal brand, client acquisition, and sales. Again, I do this heavily through AI now because it's common sense. If you've not adopted to AI, or if you're only using ChatGPT, then I potentially recommend looking at a few of my previous YouTube videos. But this is not about AI replacing you. It's about leveraging every single thing that I've done on this presentation. And I mean every single thing. So I now build out all content, all acquisition assets, all nurturing sequences, all marketing campaigns, all offers, all different roadmaps, everything, all with AI now. The type of stuff that would take 12 months to do, you can now comfortably do in 12 weeks. Like every single thing on this presentation can all be supported with AI, guys. So again, it's not just about that. AI is there for 90% of the workload, so you've got a 10% human intuition. But if you're in a spot at the moment and you feel like you do want support with your business, guys, feel free to message me on Instagram at any point, or again, scan that and you can book a call with my team. I'll see you on the next video.